Testing, testing, testing. Talk on your end for a second.
Yo, what's up, my players?
Yeah, I'm keeping this in there. Dr. Jeremy Weisz here. I'm founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Today, I'm especially excited to have John Maclntyre, who we met at Titans live and in person, who's one of the top email marketers. He's known as the autoresponder guy, and he helps entrepreneurs increase their email profits by 25 to 100% in 90 days with no advertising. Who doesn't want that, John? Less than 3 years ago, he was a lone tiger out in the Philippines, and since then, he's built a successful marketing agency and coaching business. He has also interviewed some of the world's top marketers and copywriters, including Perry Marshall, John Carlton, Bon Halbert, and many others. I've listened to several of them. They're fantastic. These days, he runs his business online. He lives in Thailand, races motorcycles through the mountains, and pretty much does whatever he wants because he has no wife and kids yet. But John, thank you for joining me.
Man, it's great to be here. I'm so glad to come on here. I mean, we met at Titans a month ago. We had a couple great conversations. So It's good to reconnect, man. And I think you're right about that wife and kids comment.
So one of my favorite conversations I had at Titans was with you at the bar. And, you know, you look at your persona online, kind of like a smart marketer, but kind of just does what he wants, wild and crazy guy. I didn't know you, and you're just such a deep intellectual person. And I don't know if you want people knowing that about you, but
you probably gotta. I think a lot of people don't. It's hard to kind of show that sometimes because I think you've got a bit of you're a similar personality. You like to go deep with topics and conversation, and so you'd find that you'd have the same challenges that I do. That when you try and talk about this stuff, people tune out. So when you find someone who's up to talk about it, I mean, you love it.
Yeah.
It's
and
great.
I think people are going to be very surprised by your background growing up, and I want to dive into that. But first, I want to hit on, I have a fun fact I always like to include, but also I want to hear about, you were saying you were speaking at a conference, and people loved this part of your talk. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it seems like, so what I did 2 talks recently. The first one was very fact-based, very much, you kind of like when a speaker gets up there, I didn't have much text on my slides, but the content was very fact-heavy, and people hate that. I mean, they don't consciously hate it, but it just doesn't click inside their heads. And like you said here, one of the email that you sent over before we hit record here was about telling stories. So what I did in the second presentation was one big story about how I went from, I'm 25 now, so 3 years ago I was, bit over 3 years ago, I was in Sydney, Australia, in a job, hated it, didn't want to be there.
What was the job?
I was doing SEO. So I knew I wanted to work online. I had a site that made about $300 a month with AdSense. And I'd use that to sort of hook myself a job at an e-commerce retailer in Australia. But I mean, after a few weeks of that job, just the whole office, just the whole job thing, it just doesn't, I don't know why. I think any entrepreneur is going to resonate with this. It just doesn't work for me. I have no idea why. So I sort of explained the story of how I went from there to this now, which is, me in Thailand doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And
which
so
we'll
the part of
but people like the failure part, right?
Well, yeah, people like the failure part. So part of the story was, I got to the Philippines, and here I am with this site that's making a couple $100 a month, and I'm thinking, oh, great, now I'm in here, I'm in the Philippines. This is my time to make it happen. I'm going to do some drop shipping. I'm going to build this site into a massive business and travel the world and be like a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week kind of guy. And the week after I arrived, Google updated their algorithm, and the whole site just got tanked.
Wow.
And my $300 a month income got wiped out. And I realized that whole idea, that vision, just disappeared in, literally a week after I got there. So, and then I went from, we can talk about it now, we can talk about it a bit later, but it was, I tried a few things over the next probably 6 to 12 months. I tried something failed, and that was really the part of my talk at this presentation that really resonated, because I find that people, and I mentioned this at the talk, is when people get on stage sometimes, or when you hear about from successful people, you hear these stories like, when I was 12 years old, I was selling Pokemon cards at school, and I just say Pokemon cards because that was what I used to play with when I was in school. But let's say I was trading Pokemon cards, and I built up this nice little business. It was doing, I made $5,000 from selling Pokemon cards when I was 13 years old, and that's great and everything. It's like, wow, that guy's awesome, but it breaks rapport with everyone in the audience because most people are not like that. Most people are not born entrepreneurs. They don't just figure it out. most people fail and fail and fail and fail, and they can't figure out why they can't get it to work. When this guy on stage, he was just a born entrepreneur. It's like, well, he did it, but he's special, and I can't do it. So that's where the failures
I can really relate to that. You're right. So what were some of those failures, those things you tried that didn't work?
So after the site got tanked, Google, what did I do? The first thing I did was try to fix it. So it's a Google Panda. Google updates their algorithms and they name them animals. So this one was called it was Google Panda 2.0. Right. And at first I tried to fix it. I emailed Google, which is really hard to do actually. Emailed Google and the site was kind of knocked out. They wouldn't do anything about it. And I tried to fix it. So apparently I'd had too many links pointing at the site that weren't the right type of links, and the content on my website was too short on some of the pages, only about 100 words. So I started to fix some of these issues that I found, thinking that, well, maybe this is going to work. And it didn't work. After, I think I tried for a month, 2 months, and 3 months. It just wouldn't click. So I'm kind of spinning my wheels. It was meant to be a 4-month internship at this resort in the Philippines. I had basically a room for free in exchange for working 2 days a week on their website and their blog and that sort of thing. But it was really only for 4 months. So after 2 or 3 months, I had nothing. My site wasn't back up, wasn't making any money at all. I'd arrived there with about $2,000 in my bank account, and that was gradually just wearing down through. I was paying for visas and food and some sort of small expenses each month. And I was starting to freak out, thinking that I'm going to have to buy a ticket back home on my credit card to go get a job because I'd failed. But what happened is I actually got pretty close, and this is where the story went in that presentation. But I tried affiliate marketing because I heard all these people are making so much money with affiliate marketing. I'm going to go do that. Mm-hmm. And a week later, I got myself a permanent ban from Google AdWords.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't tried to get it too hard to get it back since then, because I tried to create a new account at the time, and Google, any way that they can link your banned account to a new account, bans the new account. So that's a credit card number, an IP address, anything like that.
Why did it get banned?
So it was my fault. They've got very strict advertising guidelines, and it's sort of more of a tactical thing, the way I had the page set up, but the page wasn't valuable basically in and of itself. It was it was just designed to get an email address, when, as far as Google was concerned, it needs to offer more value than just getting an email address. Yeah. So that was why they banned me. And then what was the next idea? Decided to set up a dating site, actually. Because here's the funny thing, right? I was in the Philippines doing this marketing for this resort. Now, Sean, the guy who owned the resort, he had a YouTube video channel. And so what he did was he'd record videos around the resort and around the Philippines, and then put it up on the YouTube. And the idea was that he'd bring people in to the resort and get sort of prospects and leads to the website. So I jump into the YouTube funnel when I get there and start optimizing it. I sort of had an idea what I was doing. It was just basic SEO. And I think now the channel's had something over 1 million hits on his videos. The interesting part, though, was the videos that had the most traffic were videos basically where he interviewed the waitresses, which were just hot Filipino girls. Right. And so what I did, I went and found some keywords where people were searching for hot Filipino girls and optimized the videos for that. And we found, these videos are getting, the majority of the views on this channel. Right. So for a new business idea, how about, what if we, make some more videos like that so we get some views, get some traffic, and then we will, this is the ridiculous thing. We went onto a couple of dating sites in the Philippines and spent a few weekends just spamming the crap out of women on there, saying, hey, we're starting a new dating site. What's your, we'd ask them for their name, their height, their weight, their email address, maybe their phone number, and their photo, and then we'd add them to it. We literally had an Excel spreadsheet. That was our dating service. And so I set that up on a website with a sales page and a PayPal buy now button. It's very ghetto. And the idea was that, we'd put a link in the description for these hot Filipino girls videos, and someone would click, go to the video, watch it, go, oh, wow, I want a Filipino girlfriend. They'd click the link, they'd go to our website, and they'd pay for access to this spreadsheet. But no one bought anything. We never made any sales. So that was that was failure number 2 or 3, I think, in there. That took a while. It sounds very simple, but we put a lot of effort into it.
When you say that, I saw it going into like the porn route or something. Like when you
we never went down that rabbit hole. I mean, we probably discussed it.
I mean, it's a $1 billion industry. I mean,
it's Look at you, the entrepreneur. No, it's it's not.
Maybe you should rethink that.
No, we didn't do it. So
but it's interesting. You were onto something. I mean, you saw something that was working, and the component of that was working, which was the good-looking women. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's. You're exactly right. The porn market, or even just the dating market alone, is massive. So, but after that, you know, we looked at that and kind of, well, this isn't really working. And there's already plenty of dating sites in the Philippines anyway, so it wasn't really like there was a gap in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of wrapped it up there, and then the next thing, I think it was, I don't remember how I did it in the talk. The next thing was an ebook. So I made an ebook and thinking, well, I'm going to sell this on that juicing site. That was the original AdSense site that I had, which is still getting some traffic from Bing and Yahoo, a couple of other search engines. And so I was like, well, I'm going to write an ebook, create an information product, like all the marketers do, and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to make, that's going to be my money making thing. So I put together a book. It was 30 juicing recipes, fruit and vegetable juicing, so like spinach and beetroot, all that sort of stuff. Just recipes. It was a very basic ebook. No pictures, just a recipe and a bit about the recipe. Put that inside a PDF, and then started selling it on the site for, I think, $7. So I wasn't really aiming too high. And set that up. It didn't really make many sales. I vaguely remember doing some sort of product launch to an email list that I built up, and I might have made $1,000 or $1,500. It was not at the time. It meant a lot to me, but looking back, it really wasn't that much money. And it wasn't a business either. It wasn't something that I was doing every single month. I couldn't do that, And so, I mean, that sort of failed as well. So I'm kind of in this position where I've tried the AdWords, tried the affiliate marketing, and now I'm banned from AdWords. Tried the dating side, and that really didn't work either. And then tried this juicing ebook thing, and that doesn't work. And then so I'm in a position where I remember doing. I'm almost out of money here, right? By now it's about June, July-ish, 2012, and I had a bank statement, actually, a screenshot of it. I don't have it right now, but my bank account got down to, I think it was $193 or something like that. I had that much cash in my.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're on the other side of the world, in the Philippines, on a tiny little island, you got Manila, which is the capital. I'm 4 hours south, across an hour-long boat ride across what was the channel called? The Verde Island Channel, I think it was. Really rough, very typhoon, or you'd call them hurricanes, hurricane-based area. So that's where I am, and I'm almost out of money. I'm feeling like, whoa. So I gotta change something, and that's when I started to. I mean, that's really the turning point, which is when I tweaked something on I can't remember what triggered it, but I realized that to call my site, or to call this product, the name of the product was 30 juicing recipes, which I realized was so boring.
Generic.
People don't buy exactly. People don't buy recipe books. People buy results. So I did some more research and looked online and what were people searching for, and there was a keyword which was lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. So I was like, well, I'm going to call my book that. I didn't make it to teach people how to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks, but I was like, I'm just going to call it that, and it'll be 30 recipes that if people have them every day, maybe they'll lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. And it was almost funny because the day I changed that, I started making sales. And that was when it clicked, and that's really what sort of brought me to where I am now as a copywriter. It was like, whoa.
Who did you stumble on that at that time, or what made you think to change that? Because most people that kind of would just be going with the same thing and expecting it to work. Do you remember?
I think so. I'm in a community called the Dynamite Circle. It's I guess a private forum for people who sort of work online and live in Asia.
Yeah.
And there's not everyone, but there's an option to join a mastermind inside there. So a group of 4 or 5 guys, and there's always people setting them up. And I don't remember how I came across the idea of copywriting, but somehow it came up and I decided to learn how to do it. And there was a copywriting mastermind inside the forum. And so I joined in. It was for me and 3 other guys, I think. And the idea was that we'd meet up once a week on Skype and we'd chat about some sort of copywriting project in the business that we were doing. So I think that was really what kicked it into gear. That may have been where the trigger to change it to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks came about from. But I remember doing that. We did that mastermind, and it was at the end of that when I was like, man, I gotta learn how to do this copywriting thing. Like I've started to make money, and just by changing the title of the product or the words that define what I'm actually offering. So then I can say, give me $7 and I'll teach you how to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks, which is so much better than say give me $7 and I'll give you 30 juicing recipes. That's so lame. So it was after that mastermind when I was like, I gotta learn this copywriting thing. I gotta figure out how to persuade people and sell stuff, because if I can be the guy that makes it rain, then I can write my own ticket. So that was where it started, and that was sort of the failures. From then on, I mean, it's always up and down in business. But from then on, that was really put me on this journey for copyright marketing.
And we'll talk about some of what you learned, and I like what you said about people, and that's something I always need to keep in mind. What you just said reminded me is people want results. We often get caught up in our product, our service, and the features of it, but people just want what result it's going to give them. So people, this may seem random to people. You have the juicing site, but one of the fun facts about you, John, is that you eat a lot of weird food. So tell us about that.
It's funny. Like you know what? I'll preface this by saying sometimes my grandparents came to visit me in Thailand just about 2 years ago when I first got here, and pretty much every time they email me since then, they're always asking me if I'm still eating so many eggs, if I've turned into a chicken yet.
Yes.
Because when they came here, I'd rock up at breakfast, and this probably isn't so weird for a 25-year-old who lifts weights or something like that. But for an 80-year-old woman and man and woman, grandparents, it was pretty strange. I would go to breakfast and I would get 5-6 fried eggs and a whole plate of bacon and just chop that up and eat it. That was breakfast. And to them, maybe 1 or 2 eggs and a slice or 2 of bacon would be breakfast. But for me, 5 or 6 eggs, and I'm talking like a plate of bacon. That was breakfast. And since then, what I eat pretty much, when I'm in the routine, when I'm at home, every morning I wake up, I've been doing this all week for a year. I put 10 raw eggs, a handful of ice, a cup of blueberries, about 100 grams of chopped spinach. Lately, I've been putting in a tablespoon or 2 of coconut oil and 2 cups of water, blend it up, and that's my breakfast smoothie.
Yeah.
So it's got your your brain sort of MCT oil, which is in the coconut oil, really good for the brain, really good for focus, and it slows the digestion down as well. The 10 eggs is protein and good fats. Your blueberries is your vitamins and antioxidants. Your spinach is, veggies are just awesome. And the ice makes it nice and cold, and the water, I think, just liquefies it up a bit more. And that's breakfast. People think that's so weird.
Yeah. You told me that at Titans, and I do a lot of smoothies and everything like that, and I thought that was weird. I mean, the weird part about it was the 10 eggs. That blew my mind, actually.
Well, that started with, I got a friend here, Brandon, he's at home. He's not at the office right now, but he told me one day that he was doing these 8-egg smoothies, and I thought, man, that's such a great way to get protein. I was like, I'm going to do that. So I did 8 eggs, and I was like, hang on, these eggs, when you go buy a packet of eggs, they come in packets of 10 here in Thailand. So I'm like, why don't I just do 10, and then it's just even. I can buy 3 packets, and that's 3 days.
Wow.
If I go to the market, I can get trays of 10, trays of 30. So then 1 tray is 3 days. So I get 3 trays for 9 days. Exactly. So when people see me, everyone here knows me as this. The reason I mentioned you asked me about it before was that a few people have mentioned again recently is like they see me. I turn up at coffee shops or at the office with this bottle of green gunk. It doesn't. To be honest. It doesn't really taste that good. When I give it to people, no one has ever said, "Oh my God, that tastes amazing."
No, it sounds like it tastes horrible. Yeah.
Drink this? Are you serious? You drink this every day? I must admit, the coconut oil adds a nice little twist to it. It makes it a bit more flavorsome.
Yeah. So, John, I know you are the email guy, the autoresponder guy. What are a few big mistakes you see people make with their emails? Because you do a lot of coaching too.
That's a nice segue too. That was a very good switch there. Eggs into email. Anyway, I think the biggest mistake with email copywriting, and this all applies to I think marketing and copyright, just copywriting in general, is that people think it's about in the case of email, it's your subject line, it's your it's your call to action, it's should you use HTML or text, how long should your autoresponder be, all these sort of strategic or extra things like tactics, right? And what I've noticed, in my own experience with my own business and with client businesses, is that they're all bonus points. They're all little tweaks to the system. But if you don't have the system right in the first place, the little tweaks aren't going to help. So in this case, you're really looking at like your product market fit is what someone in, say, Silicon Valley might call it. That product market fit really defines, does the market, what problem do they have and how well does your product solve that problem? Because if you have incredible product market fit, you barely need to sell, your copy could be terrible and you're still going to sell the crap out of it because there's such a tight product market fit. On the conversely, if you have a really shitty product market fit, you're going to have people coming in going, like, you have the best copy, but they're just going to be like, well, I just don't really want this. Like, for example, you get a great copywriter with a great ebook or a great information product to sell to someone who just doesn't read or doesn't like information products. Great, could be great copy. The conversions could be dialed up to 1,000%, whatever. But this person doesn't read books. So there's this huge disconnect there. So anyway, to bring that back to email, it's that before you can worry about your subject lines and open rates and how long should that autoresponder be and what elements in that email matter, you've really got to make sure that product market fit is down. The reason I mention this because some people the listener might be the watcher might be seeing this and kind of think, well, that's just the most basic information I've heard. But for me, this was such a revolutionary idea because I think at Titans what I've noticed, and I've seen this happen at other marketing conferences, is so much emphasis is placed on your sales funnel and how to trigger this psychological insight when really it's, are you selling something that people actually want to buy?
Yeah.
And I really think that I wish that I learned this earlier, and I wish they talked about this more at conferences. The problem is it's not really sexy to talk about because very few people want to get out of the business they're in and start a new one because that's way too much work. They'd rather just optimize the business they have. The problem is, if they're in the wrong business, or if their business doesn't have the potential to go to, say, $100 million, but they want to make $100 million, they've got to get a new business. There's no short of, obviously there's cases where there are ways to build a business that maybe it doesn't look like it could be 100, but you could change things, change the model, pivot, all that sort of stuff. But it's kind of like when you think 80-20, you think about what change is going to make the biggest impact in life or in the business. It's, are you selling something that people want? And if you aren't, you need to get something better to sell, and maybe go into a different market, start a new business.
So what was a case, John, that you remember telling someone to get out of their current business because you saw it was not a good fit? Maybe they didn't listen to you, but...
I was telling someone tonight, actually. I just had dinner with someone here in Chiang Mai, and we're talking about, one thing that's all the rage right now is Teespring. And I've met guys doing, I got a friend here, he's from Vietnam actually, just a Vietnamese kid. And he was doing $50,000 a month on Teespring. And I think it was just him, just grinding away, setting up Teespring campaigns.
Yeah. For people who don't know what that is, it's that's the t-shirt where you set up the different t-shirts?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically you to go back, you set up, Teespring is a site that allows you to say, create a t-shirt design, and let's say you sell 1,000 of them, Teespring makes the shirt for you, and you get a cut of the profit. More or less. Yeah. So what people have been doing is setting up campaign. They go and create a T-shirt for, say, a sports team. Like, I don't know any sports teams in the US, but pick a sports team, and then they create a shirt for it that looks really cool, and then advertise it to people on Facebook, get a whole bunch of sales, and make some profit. So there's this guy, a friend who's doing $50K a month, with it. Another guy who's doing, I think, $100,000 a month, and he's been doing it for 12 months.
On T-shirts.
It's like they're doing some. Yeah, there's some serious numbers with some of these guys. I mean, obviously, most of them don't make any money at all, but
because they're spending most of it on ads, you mean, or?
Well, I'm talking like 50K profit, 100K profit.
Wow,
it's insane what some of these guys are doing. But so I had dinner with this guy tonight, and he's talking about going after this Teespring thing, and It's interesting. It made me think a lot because I've been in this position before. Where it's like you hear a cool story about this great. This is actually sort of similar to what you asked, but a little bit different actually. Now that I realize it, but it's easy to kind of chase after that opportunity or look for that optimization. But let's say to answer the original question, if you're doing a Teespring campaign, the issue with that is that it's such a simple idea. You're just grinding, as far as I understand, you're just grinding out campaigns. You set up campaign after campaign after campaign. You set up 100 campaigns, and you're going to get 10 or 15, 20 of them. I don't know what the rate is, but a certain number of them will be profitable. And then you can make some money if you do enough of them, so it's a numbers game. But you can't really outsource it because it's so simple that if you can outsource it, well, they might as well just do it for themselves. So you're really just building yourself into a job. It's a cash flow. You can't sell it. So the problem right there is not that, I mean, you can optimize, you can go and get all the sorts of tips, and you go to a Teespring conference, you could do all sorts of stuff, but the central limiting factor is you're just not building anything that's, you're not building an asset, you're not building a business. So if your goal is to build a business that you say can sell, it doesn't matter how well you do Teespring, you need to have a different business.
Yeah.
And then, so I mean, the side part of that is, I mean, this is really copywriting related, but there's this opportunistic mindset. I see this with marketers and copywriters too, with jumping from one opportunity to the next. It could be one business to the next. It could be one marketing strategy to the next. We're like, oh, autoresponders. I got to get an autoresponder. So then they come to me and they sign up to the community and they start learning how to do it. When really what they need is to figure out their business model and figure out how many they need. Some more products. They need to have an upsell flow. They need to have some tracking set up. That all people hear about, like webinars. Oh, webinars are all the rage right now. I better do some webinars, or I better do this, or I better do that. But it always comes back to these fundamentals.
Yeah, it's very true. We all like to jump from shiny object to shiny object sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a human thing.
What did you think, John, when they were talking? What was working? Obviously, that's a large amount to be doing in T-shirts. For the people that were doing 50 or even 100,000 a month, what did you see that was working?
To be honest, it's not. I'm not involved with it enough to know that much about it. But I set up a few campaigns on my own just to see how. Well, I actually wanted to. I was like, wow, I was having the opportunistic thing. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go make some money. Set a few. I was like, this is so boring. This is, I think I set up 10, and I don't think any of them made money. 'Cause it was the first time I'd done it. And I'm like, man, if I had to do I could probably do 50 or 100 of these a day, maybe, if I really wanted to. But what a crappy way to live my life. Like, it's not fun at all. I want to build a system that means that, if I'm working, I want to make sure that I'm building something that's going to be there when I'm not there. When I'm off in the mountains or something, I'm somewhere. But if I'm not working, the whole system goes on running. I want to build a business. I don't want to build, you might call it a cash flow.
Yeah.
So I kind of stopped. But as far as what was working, I mean, you'd have to really talk to these guys because there's a lot of products out there that teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the basic idea is you go to Teespring, you set up you're really just tapping into passionate fans that are passionate about. See, sports is great because you get really passionate fans that want to buy, a T-shirt. Let's say one team beats another, you can make a shirt for that team that won, and make some sort of joke about the team that they beat, and the passionate fans will buy stuff like that. So it's you do need, there's a bit of there's a bit of thinking, but strategic thinking that goes into it. But it's not my bag, and I really don't think it's you can pull in some quick cash with it. But the other side of it is when this sort of stuff comes up, if you're hearing about it in the sort of the I guess the communities that I'm involved in, everyone knows about it now. So because everyone knows about it, there's so many more people doing it. So it's really not that good of an opportunity anymore. Whereas if you come in at the beginning, you end up, you start doing it first. You have, all that extra time to develop advanced strategies. By the time the new guys come in, you are so far ahead of them. There's just no way they can catch up.
Yeah. John, let me ask you this. So you were talking before, a big turning point was when you changed that title on your ebook into the result. What was the next big milestone for you after that?
I think it was realizing the value of what I'd learned how to do. I remember Dan Andrews, who's from tropicalmba.com. He was the guy that gave me set up the internship in the Philippines, and he said he hired me he heard I was writing, learning how to write copy and write emails and that sort of thing, and so he hired me, paid me $200, and I wrote him 10 emails, and I could not believe it. Who the hell would pay $200 for 10 it's emails, right? Didn't understand it. So he paid. I was like, well, this is pretty cool. I mean, maybe this could. I don't even know if I thought about that it could be a business, but I was like, well, this seems interesting. So anyway, they had like a conference at the resort where I was staying there, and he asked me to get up and do a talk on autoresponders. I get up and do that, sort of basically just run everyone through what I did for Dan. And at the end, he's like, all right, before you get off, before you go off and hide out, John, let's just stay up there. And he gets someone to raise their hand. He's like, all right, put up your hand if you pay if you think this is valuable, first of all. All right, cool. And everyone puts up their hand. It's like, all right, now put up your hand if you'd pay maybe say $500 for this, or if you'd even just pay for having some emails written like this. And everyone put up their hands like, what the whole? People are going to pay money for emails? And then he starts asking, was like, well, how much do you think, how much would you pay for this? Someone's like, well, I'd pay $500. I'm like, what? $500 for a set of emails? I couldn't believe it. And this other guy, he's involved with property, so real estate. So when you're selling property, you got one extra sale a month, say, you're gonna make 10 grand commission. So he puts up his hand. And he's like, well, I'd probably pay at least $1,500 for this. And by this stage, I couldn't believe it. And like now I get it, but back then that was so far outside my paradigm. I didn't understand the whole idea that the business people will pay for something that offers them a return. So if they can spend $1,500 to make $5,000 or $10,000 or $100,000, it's a great deal. It doesn't matter, and the best business person will always think about it in those terms. So to me, that was, and I'm still going through this lesson now. I've increased my rates far beyond what they were back then, but even now, I'm still getting told. I just signed up actually with a coach this week to go through some of these issues where I was talking with him. He's saying, dude, you are still so far underpricing yourself. And it's this exact issue where I'm still, even now after 2 years, I know this, I'm still not fully familiar with how much value that I have to add. And so going back to that time in the Philippines, that was that kicker. It was like, whoa, this is valuable. This isn't me, this isn't Dan doing me a favor. This isn't these guys being nice to me. This is them saying, I have a business, I want to make money, and I'd like John, I really think, John, that you could help me make more money. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that, when you take that belief or that mindset or that attitude and sort of blow it out over a period of time, that's where the confidence comes, where a lot of my confidence came from to kind of to push forward.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you do next after you saw all these hands raised?
Well, what happened? Nothing actually happened straight after that. None of those people signed up, but what I did do is I pestered Dan. He said he's got a podcast, very engaged podcast, and so I thought, well, let's get on the podcast, and he suggested it, but I had to kind of follow up with him a whole bunch of times to actually make it happen. So we did the podcast, and I was so nervous the first time. I'd never done a podcast interview before. Anyway, we did that. I made an offer at the end of the podcast saying, well, we'd increased Dan's opt-in rate by 257%, so 2.5 times more opt-ins with what I'd done on his website. And then at the end, it was like, well, if you want me to do the same for you, you can just go to this website, dropdeadcopy.com, give him a URL, and I'll create you 10 emails, I'll create you a landing page, I'll do exactly what I did for Dan to increase his opt-in rate by 257%. So made an offer there, was the idea. And after that, I think I got 2 or 3 clients out of it. And that's where it clicked. I was like, man, podcasting, that's where it's at. I'm going to get clients out. So I started charging, I think, $500 for 10 emails at that stage. And, a few clients came through there, and then I started doing podcast. I just went on the round, started pimping myself out on podcasts, and picked up clients like that, more or less. I promoted myself in a couple different forums that got me business. To me, I very much feel like I've just figured it. I've been figuring it out as I go along. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. I've never had to go the traditional client getting route of cold emailing, and I've never advertised to get clients. Though I probably could make more money if I did. I will be starting some of that soon.
Well, because your AdWords account got banned, so what are you going to do?
Oh, you can do Facebook. There are ways to get back on AdWords. I'm just
kidding. What was working? What did you do for Dan that worked?
The problem with Dan's side is you see this on a lot of blogs, is they ask to get updates. They say, sign up to this blog to get free, sign up here to get free updates. And it's just such a terrible, terrible offer. And actually they had a thing in there which was like, they had a podcast. So they were offering, it was something along the lines of, if you sign up here, you'll get free updates, and we'll also give you access to our 50 podcast episodes, the first 50 we did. Because they weren't available in the archives. They'd sort of taken them off, put them behind the opt-in wall to try and make people opt in. And it was really small, it wasn't really highlighted, and who wants to download 50 episodes and listen to them? It's kind of a pain in the ass. So what I said was, all right, how about we do this? We do what's called a 2-step opt-in. So you have a button that basically means that someone clicks a link, they go to another page, they read a landing page, and then on that landing page there's an opt-in at the bottom that says, if you want to sign up, put your email address in here. So the link says, what we call it, the Tropical MBA Crash Course. And it was the top 10 podcasts that we pulled from the first 50, the top 10 most compelling in terms of the headlines. And then so you click on Tropical MBA Crash Course, and there's a landing page with sort of some basic sales copy on there. And then at the bottom, just an opt-in box. And said, if you sign up here, we'll send you out the Tropical MBA Crash Course, which is, here are the 10 lessons. And that was all it was. And each email was very simple. It was like, hey, it was a quick sort of, I guess probably a catchy little bio, or catchy little paragraph or two about the episode itself, and then a link. And that was it. It was that simple.
Yeah. It's interesting. Because I don't know if most people would have done the 2-page thing. Because I think Andre Chaperone talks a little bit about that too. Right? Just getting people to click.
Yeah, I mean, Andre's kind of got his thing where he's got like 7 different pages. Or what I've realized right now, when someone asks me, should I do daily emails or should I, some people do like content over time, so that they're all about building a relationship. Some people have like Andre has a very specific sort of storytelling format that he follows with open loops and all sorts of things. And what I've realized through doing it is that I feel like there's not really the perfect solution here. A lot depends on your personality, on what you want to do, a lot depends on Eugene Schwartz's 5 levels of awareness, where someone is in that cycle. Are they aware of you? Have they never heard of you? So much depends on the context, on where someone's at right now, because really the email is just sort of connecting them to the next step. So in some cases, Andre's strategy is going to be best. In another case, daily emails are going to be best. And in another case, just general relationship building content emails are going to be best.
Right. So John, what's some successful? Talk about one of your most successful campaigns that you help someone out with. At the top of the interview, I said, people can increase their email profits from 25 to 100%. What's one of the more successful ones that you helped turn around, and what did you do?
I've had some interesting stories come via the podcast. And one of them, his name was Terry, and his email, I get this email one day from him. Can I swear? I don't know if I can swear.
Sure, yeah, whatever.
Let me bring up his email, man. I'll read it out. It's a great email. The subject line, hang on, it's just loading. The subject line, here's the email. You fucking rock. And the email starts, thank you, John. I listened to all your podcasts from episode 1 to the present. Truly awesome stuff. I used your methods and the methods of the guests to develop, implement, and deliver my autoresponder campaign to the list. I sell a physical device. I developed 3 campaigns that clearly illustrate significant impact. First launch was to a list no bigger than 300. Second was to a Cyber Monday, the Christmas event. And the third was a sequence that involves some love on Valentine's Day. Anyway, thanks to you and mostly you alone, I've pulled in, as of today, March 1, 2014, over 76 grand in less than 6 months. Wow. It's about 15 grand a month over the first 5 months of the site's existence. I have nothing but high praise for you, my friend. You fucking rock in my book. And all he did, like I got him. We actually did a case study together.
Yeah.
We did a podcast together about it, and then another case study, and it was so simple. Like there was nothing. All he had was an opt-in page and some emails that he'd based on the stuff that I talk about on the podcast that I have. So I'll bring up another one. Let's see.
Well, what did he do with was there something specific he did with the landing page or the emails? Because
from what I remember. Yeah, from what I remember, what he did, basically AdWords to a landing page, and the landing page wasn't fancy or anything. It was just it would have been an attention-getting headline, a bit of copy about what they're going to get on the list. From what I think it was a beginner's course or something like that. That was how he framed it up. They sign up, and then it was about, I think it was 10 emails, and it was sort of like a pre-launch email list where he's sort of writing something cool about the topic about this physical device. It's something to do with hacking or hacking wireless networks, something like that. And so each email was a bit more about the product, sort of teasing them, making them, generating curiosity or that sort of stuff for the launch, which was probably on day 9, day 10, something like that. The podcast is on my site, so if you go to Google and type in McMethod Terry Dunlap, you'll actually find it, and that's where he goes through exactly what he did.
Yeah.
But I was blown away because it was such a basic. There was nothing fancy about it. It was such a good reminder to me and to the people who listen to my podcast. This stuff isn't complicated. people think it's complicated when they're like, well, do I need Infusionsoft or Office Autopilot or, HubSpot? How many autoresponders do I need? Do I need to segment everything and have this crazy like maze going on? And yeah, that stuff can be useful when used right. But I mean, at least at first, just get something set up, and you can do really good with just something basic to start with.
Yeah.
So
what John, obviously there's a lot of success there. What's a campaign or something when it was implemented didn't work, and then how you modified it to turn it around?
Okay. Actually, I don't know if I can tell you who I did this for. I did a campaign for a startup recently. Well, not recently.
You don't have to mention a name. I don't edit if you want to or not. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I can say it. I remember because what happened was this startup hired me. I was really pumped because I think it had just been funded actually. So they had a whole bunch of money to spend. I was like, sick. Well, I'll do some emails for them. It'd be a whole bunch of work. It'd be great. And so we get together and they pay the money, and I'm like, all right, I'll write these emails. Sit down. Like, oh, by the way, we've hired 6 different copywriters. I'm going to be split testing your email with all their emails to see which one works best. I'm like, all right, fair enough. This will be good. I'm going to win. And I use the typical format that I use, story. So, the headline is like a sort of a hook, some sort of catchy headline that gets them to open the email. And then maybe 200, 300 words trying to get them to go and take an action basically on this website. And out of the 6 or 7 copywriters, I don't remember how many there were, my emails were the worst. So the email guy, the autoresponder guys come in and said, all right, let's do it my way. And then my way had completely flopped. So it was I think it was shocking to me at the time. It was quite strange. But what had happened was, it's a startup. So it was sort of like a software-ish kind of company. And what ended up working, the email that had performed the best was actually written by the founder, which was interesting. And it was 2 lines or something like that. The call to it was sort of like an engagement email, trying to get people to get back on the site and start using the software. And so his email, my email was plain text, because that's what I always suggest: no logo, no header, no anything like that, just plain text, no images, no styles, no colors. And his email had a header at the top, and it was 2 lines. Catch it, you might have just said, hey, we've missed you. And then you open the email up, it's like, hey, we missed you. By the way, when was the last time you did this action? Name. Right? So then that was the email. That was the email that won. Out of 6, 7. I don't know how good these other copywriters were that hired them. I was the worst though in that case. And so for me, the lesson was really about that context thing. Like I just mentioned, is that like the story-based, style of emails that we do works for a lot of companies, but it doesn't work for some companies.
Right.
Sometimes Andre's strategy is going to work. Sometimes daily emails is going to work. Sometimes you need to take a much, much, much drier approach, like this company did. So it's almost like the secret isn't getting the perfect strategy. The secret is understanding the context and how to fit the right strategy into the context that you have going on.
Right. No, I like that. And Jen, you were mentioning your format. So what kind of format do you use? And I want to hear also what some of your favorite subject lines have been, or ones that surprised you that worked, so that you keep using them.
The format that I use, I've created a 4-step formula for writing emails. I call the HIPS, the HIPS method. And HIPS really, it's an acronym. So H is for hook. It's step 1. You got to hook their attention. I is for interest. You've got to get them interested. And P is for parable. So that's where you say parable that can be a story, that can be an anecdote, that could be just say something funny, go on a rant. And then S is for slide into the call of action. So whether it's the sale, whether it's hit reply and tell me something, whether it's go download this ebook, go watch this video, you slide. So an example might be, your hook is Abraham Lincoln's Lincoln's Guide to Email Marketing. Someone's going to see it and be like, whoa, what? Abraham Lincoln and email marketing? That's random. What's this about? The interesting thing there is, because I've mentioned email marketing in that subject line, someone's only going to open that email if they're interested in email marketing, generally. Okay? And then in the first few lines of that email, I might say, here's Abraham Lincoln's guide to email marketing, and then I start telling the story. It's like 8, I don't know when he was born, but 1804, Abraham Lincoln was born. 1806, this happened. 1809, this happened. And it's actually an interesting email. So that sort of starts it off, gets them interested. We've hooked them, we've gotten them interested. And then the parable is really the rest of that story of what happens to Abraham Lincoln in his life, how many times he failed, and how he eventually became president. And then at the end, the slide into the call to action. The slide is really, Abraham Lincoln's life was hard. He had to fail to succeed. And you know what? That's just like email marketing. You've got to fail a lot to succeed. But hey, if you want to get a shortcut, or if you want to cut that learning curve in half, or just make that learning curve a little bit smaller, you should get
hire the autoresponder guy.
Exactly. And that's where you get that pitch coming in. So hook, interest, parable, slide. And that's really to get, the second part of your question was what emails, what formats that I've been using. That, Abraham Lincoln's Guide to Email Marketing, I've used that plenty of times. Rocky's Guide to Email Marketing. You could do the same, like the Lord of the Rings Guide to Email Marketing, Frodo's Guide to Email Marketing. And it just, you wouldn't want to overuse it.
Yeah.
Well, then again, I think that would be quite interesting. You're seeing like all the different ways you could spin popular characters or popular stuff, pop culture stuff into a topic. It could be like Frodo's Guide to gardening.
Yeah. It depends who your market is too, and who their celebrity person is. Like if they're technical people, you may, maybe not, but into like Star Trek or something, whatever their market is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other subject lines have surprised you that worked or didn't work?
I had one when I checked the conversions a while back. One of them was the subject line was boom shakalaka taka tuka boo. And then the email itself was about why subject lines don't really matter that much. And that what matters more is that you're once again getting someone's attention. But it's understanding that if I do boom shakalaka taka tuka boo, I can't do that same subject line the next day because I've already done it. So I'm not going to get it's not going to hook their attention.
Right.
As, So that was one of the surprising headlines that I've seen.
I like that. So what are some of are there any other big mistakes that you see businesses making or clients making that when you tell them about it, they don't listen to you? They're resistant for some reason.
I'd say tracking, especially with direct response advertising. It's so easy with the online stuff these days to track everything. You got event tracking software like, I use Mixpanel, there's Kissmetrics, where you can track literally everything that happens on your website, and you can build sales funnels that will tell you every time someone clicks a button on your website. Not only goes to another site, but they click a button, which I think is badass, because then you can figure out exactly where people are dropping off in your sales funnel. And this is really what gives you the insight to go optimize that. I got people in the forum that I'm working in the training forum that I've got, and it's interesting to know that a lot of people don't understand that the tracking it's kind of annoying and frustrating because it's just numbers. If you're not a numbers person, it's really not that interesting. But if you don't have tracking, if you don't know how much money you're making for how much, every time you buy something, pay for someone to get to your website with advertising, or even if you're just doing a blog, like if you're not doing any paid traffic, but you're just doing your blog and you're a sales funnel and some blog posts and it's all free stuff in terms of just SEO, say, you don't know. If you don't have your tracking set up, you don't know what steps in your sales funnel are broken, so you can't improve it.
What things do you like to use for tracking?
I use Mixpanel. So I would think that it's a little bit tricky it's really easy to set up when you know how to set it up,
right.
But it can be a little bit tricky if it's your first time. Tracking is a big issue, but I can't overstate the importance of it.
It's true. Yeah, Visual Website Optimizer is one that I've found people use, and Crazy Egg, I guess, is another tracking.
It's like what you'd want to do is like Visual Website Optimizer is a split testing app. So you can put like page 1, page 2, send 10,000 people at the funnel, and it'll serve up both these 50-50. You see which one wins. And Crazy Egg is heat tracking, so you'll see where people click on your page. But what you really want to do is break your sales funnel into pieces, right? Because it's until you break your sales funnel into pieces, your whole sales process, you don't know where it's broken. So let's say you break, you're like, all right, well, we have the landing page here, And then we've got someone opts in, and then they have the next page. And let's say your opt-in rate is maybe, well, let's say you add here, landing page, thank you page. Now, let's just go with that because we have a long one, but it'll get complicated. And so your click-through rate from ad to landing page, let's say it's 1%. You're advertising on Facebook and it's 1%. And then you look at your opt-in rate from opt-in page to thank you page. So that's how many people are opting in, and you're getting maybe 45%. And there's 2 steps in that sales funnel.
Right.
And obviously, there's more in there, but let's just say that 2 steps. Because of that, you might not be making much money. You might look at that and say, well, I just spent $10,000 driving traffic at that sales funnel. I didn't really make any money. I made a bit of sales, but I got a few opt-ins, but I didn't really, I spent $10,000, I only made $5,000 or something. But if you look at the ad, so you kind of think, well, where's it broken? Is it the opt-in rate?
Right.
Or is it is it the ad? And you don't really know until you track it. And when you track it, you look at it, you go 45% opt-in rate. That's great. Yeah. But 1% on your click-through rate on Facebook is not really good enough. You really want to get at least a 2% on Facebook advertising if you're doing newsfeed ads. So if you get from 1% to 2%, you would double your traffic and you'd probably halve your ad spend. So you'd go from spending $10,000 to $5,000, plus you'd be getting double the amount of traffic, which would mean your revenue would double, but your cost would halve. Yeah. So just by being able to identify where the step in the process is broken. So if you spread that out over a 10-step sales funnel, you really get an intimate understanding of what step in that sales process is broken.
Yeah, it's the non-sexy stuff that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this used to bore me out of my brains until I set up a Facebook advertising campaign and I realized that this stuff right here, this is where you make your money. Right. Because if you can get a funnel that converts with cold traffic, with paid traffic, I mean, you can write your ticket. That's when you go to affiliates. You're like, well, look, I got my earnings per click down pat. I got this, and this. And very few people can do it. Very few people can get anything converting on paid traffic. It's very hard. And it requires, I think it just requires the right mindset. So.
Yeah. John, you mentioned too the forum. You have a paid community. I want to know, again, a lot of people, that's what they want. They have this transactional stuff in their business. They want that recurring customer. So how do you transition to start that paid community, and tell us a little bit about what people get?
As for starting it, I mean, just do it. The reason I say that is I was on a Facebook group this week looking at some of the threads in there, and one guy was saying, very very well-known copywriter who's been writing for some of the some big internet marketers, and he was talking about a sales funnel that he had that was converting fairly low-dollar products, and he mentioned that somewhere down the line he wanted to start a community. I was like, man, like, look, you've read. I just thought it was sort of funny because he'd spent. I mean, this guy's written copy for guys like Frank Kern, Perry Marshall, all the biggest guys in this industry, and here he is playing around on a funnel for fairly really low dollar products. He's not making much. To me, it didn't look like he was making that much money, and he didn't have any sort of high priced offer on the back end. And then he wanted to start a membership community, and he didn't seem to have the idea for putting the membership community inside the funnel. I just didn't understand it. It's sort of like thinking that he had to go and get this funnel working with a low dollar product before he could go on to the next step. Yeah. Whereas to me, both probably my strength and it can be a weakness at times. I'm just like, man, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. I make mistakes, but I get stuff done. So to me, doing the community, I think I launched, and initially I had maybe 30 people in there, and there was a bit of churn the first month because I was still figuring it out. So I went down to 20 members, and obviously the forum's not that engaged when you've only got 20 members in there. But I kept it, and it's grown from there.
Yeah. I mean, so what have you figured out worked? Obviously, with anything you're trying, things work, things didn't work. What worked with that community and that membership for you?
For me, the reason I was able to get 30 members in there to start with was because I already had a list. Yeah. And that's pretty important. Yeah. If you don't have a list, then it's really hard to get anywhere. You're buying traffic, no one knows who you are. If you can start building a brand for yourself, it gives you a lot more security. So the list was what kicked it off. Just for making it work, what I've done is I've had a few different paid products that I sell, and I thought, well, instead of selling them one off like that, why don't I put them all inside a forum and then just charge for monthly access? Mm-hmm. And then people get access to the training products, and they also get access to me. So instead of me replying to emails, I just go in the forum, and everyone can see my my replies to people, so everyone can keep learning from it.
Yeah.
Now, what I have learned through it is that people worry. I think people worry too much about. They overthink the idea of like engagement. And I've had people cancel over the sometimes probably a few months ago when the engagement wasn't high enough, and they wanted the forum to be more active.
Yeah.
And I've had to accept that, right? Sometimes it's there's been times when it's not that active. And to me, I don't look at that as obviously it's going to be better if it is more active, and that's what I'm moving towards over time. But it's sort of like where I've gotten to is like you get a baseline, so launch it. You get a baseline, you figure out how based on your monthly cost, how much you're actually making. So if it's $50 a month, and you figure out, well, someone stays 3 months on average, that means you got $150 per person on average. So that's kind of interesting. And then it's like, well, how can you work on that? It's like, well, if you double the retention rate, you're going to start making $300 per person. Then you can go back to you maybe split test some pricing. Maybe you can get that pricing up to say $100. Now you're making $600 per person. Then you go back to advertising, and you can really start to get some really interesting results because you've got a higher lifetime value.
Yeah.
So I mean, the lesson for me is like people try and make things perfect too often, especially with the community. Like they've got to have the engagement there. The products have all got to be done.
A lot of moving parts. Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, it's a forum and a couple of products, and then you work on it as it grows. You add it. You don't have to add a product every single month, but it's like a business, right? The more you feed it, the more it's going to grow.
I think at any level, John, no matter if someone's starting, middle, or they're at high level, that thing you said, people struggle with. How do you keep engagement? How do you increase engagement? What have you found has worked with that?
I've what I've done right now is I've got a few things in the forum. One of them, there's a welcome thread, so everyone who joins gets an email to say that they should post in the welcome thread and say, hey, here's me, here's what I'm here for, and here's what I'm, all that sort of stuff. There's a post there called 8 ways to get value from McMasters, so it just goes through a list of different things that they can do. There's an accountability forum. So that's where they jump in there and they create an accountability thread, and I'll reply to their threads personally and sort of walk them through the process. And if they need feedback, I can do that. I've just set up a thing now where you can get Facebook updates. So there's basically taken the RSS feed from the forum, and I'm publishing that to Facebook in a private group. So if you're in the group, if you're in the forum, now you can get on Facebook and join the Facebook group, and you'll get a forum post updated on Facebook.
Nice.
So that means you're getting the notifications for the forum. That was just a recent thing. So that's some of the things. One thing I'm going to be doing over the next few months is setting up an onboarding autoresponder, which is on a list that I've got here on the whiteboard, where someone signs up and every, say, few days or every week, they've got a new action to do. Maybe go make this post in the forum or something like that. So to really, use the autoresponder. I think there's too few people doing this because I haven't seen many. I've joined communities before and no one has this, but have like an onboarding autoresponder for it. The same way software companies do, where, what I'd like to do actually is get some software, and I don't think this would be too difficult. You might have to get this custom coded, where if someone hasn't visited the welcome thread after, 3 days after joining the forum, I send them an email and say, hey, you haven't visited this thread yet. You should post in this thread.
We're waiting for you.
And then the same thing, after a week, if they haven't started an accountability thread, I send an email. Yeah, that sort of stuff. I think that would do a lot to drive engagement in any sort of forum.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, all of this, once again, goes back to that idea that you've got to have something that people want. So one thing I'm constantly trying to keep in mind, and I mean, another thing on the list here is come up with some sexier branding. Because I was just at a conference recently, and people were like, well, what do you do? And I go, well, email marketing. And their eyes kind of glaze over because it's really not very sexy, I've realized.
It comes at, so I went to dinner last night. Brian Kurtz was in town in Chicago. I went to dinner with Brian, Perry Marshall, Paris Lampropoulos, and Brian told me something that was interesting. He said he went in one of his masterminds. They told him to figure out a 6-word intro for yourself so that people ask a question.
That's a cool idea. I'm going to write that down.
And so he told me his, and the guy who, I forgot how to pronounce it, Kleber, I think, came up with this. He credited him in saying, like, whatever it is, I think he's the guy who helps people raise millions of dollars from crowdfunding. It was like, I help people fund their dreams. I think this is what he said Clay's was. And so I was just thinking about that last night of what mine should be a 6-word intro that is intriguing, that gets people like. I don't know what yours would be. That would be an interesting one. Instead of the autoresponder guy, I take your passion and so you can make money. I don't know what it is.
I think it'd be like, yeah. I just sort of on there. I help people get more clients and customers than they can handle.
Okay. Yeah. So
something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I thought that was interesting what he said. Exactly what you said. Was it a punchy 6-word that gets people asking you a question?
I help people feel like they're 22 years old again, 18 years old. That could be yours, right?
Why is that? Oh, why is that though?
Because you're a chiropractor, right? You have a chiropractic office. So
yes.
I help people feel.
Yes, I like
20
that.
years younger.
Yes.
Because that would be like, oh, what do you mean? Like, do you sell supplements or you know?
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. I'm the fountain of youth. John.
I like that one.
Since this is Inspired Insider, I have to ask you this question. And tell me about your lowest moment and then how you push forward through it.
I think there's been a few low moments, but I think one of the lowest moments was getting to the Philippines and having that site. Like I was so excited to be in the Philippines. I just arrived. We just spent a week partying because we had sort of a meetup, a bit of a mastermind. The weekend I arrived in the Philippines, and I'm all excited. It's my first time in Asia. I'm thinking I'm going to be the next Tim Ferriss. Like I'm just pumped up on that dream. 22 years old at the time, and a week after I get there, the site that I was, it was still small, admittedly, but for me at the time, it was a big deal. And it gets wiped out. And I remember thinking, like, what did I even come out here for? Like, this is such like a, what am I doing? And I remember getting on the phone with Dan Andrews, the guy who set up the internship in the first place. And I was trying to talk to him, and I could hear that he sounded a little bit frustrated with me. Because I think maybe he wasn't. I could be wrong. I felt like I was taking up his time or something like that. And, I felt I didn't really know what to do. And it was challenging. There are those times when it's kind of like you wrestle with the self-doubt of thinking that I don't know if I can do this, or really thinking that I want to figure it out, but this just isn't working, and just getting pissed off with life, pissed off with myself at the time. I remember I went and what did I do? I didn't want to work, so I probably smoked a few cigarettes because I smoked a lot back then. And I was smoking, and probably I think I jumped in a taxi, jumped in a tricycle is what they had in the Philippines, and went down to a beach and bought myself an acoustic guitar for probably $40 or something like that, just a cheap Filipino thing, and sat on the beach and played. So I can play guitar. I played guitar for a long time, so I just sat there and played guitar and thought, just sort of processed a bit of stuff. And I didn't go back that evening thinking, wow, man, life is amazing again. But I processed a bit and sort of got back to the hotel and got back on my feet and just kicked on. And so I think that, there's been other low moments like that through the last few years and through life in general. And for me, I don't think I've ever seriously considered the option of going home. It was always a case of, look, I'm going to make this work. Like absolute worst case scenario, I'll borrow money to get home or something. But short of that happening, short of me like going bankrupt or something like that, I'm going to make this work. And so like no matter how bad it got at that time or any of the other times, when I had $200 in my bank account, left, it was always, it didn't always feel good. There's that element of like, I was trying to, I was pumping myself up. I was trying to manage my emotional state. I'm meditating, doing everything I could to kind of keep myself up. But still, it didn't feel good at the time. And it does feel a lot better to have money. But yeah. So that was what happened. Yeah.
So going from that, what's been the proudest moment?
You ask really good questions, man.
Thank you.
There's been a lot of moments, man. I don't tend, like, personally, I don't tend to single out moments, but like that was the best moment of my life. And to me, I feel like every year's just getting better. But if I had to pick something in the last few years, I'd probably say Bangkok. Probably no, actually, that was probably I got to Thailand. Sorry, 2 years ago, I'd been in Thailand a couple months. It was in December or something like that. And I made about $6,000 with copywriting stuff. And at the end of that month, I was so happy because I'd finally cracked it. You know, I'd gotten to Thailand after the Philippines and was sort of a bit nervous, wondering if I'd be able to make it work. And boom, I got there and I made $6,000 and I couldn't believe it because that was more than I'd ever made. I mean, that was on par, if not more than I'd ever made in a job back home. So that was me thinking, whoa, that was that I've made it moment. That like I know that I'm not gonna have to, if I gave up and went home, I could do that. But unless I stop working, I'm not gonna fail anymore. It was that newfound confidence, like this is me. I made this happen. So
yeah, realizing now you're the rainmaker.
Yeah, and realizing that even if I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be at that stage, that the real pride or the real thrill was knowing that it was me making it happen. I mean, I think that's the thrill of being in business and being an entrepreneur. It's not so much like making $1 billion if that's what you want to do, but it's being your own man or woman. It's not even just being in control. It's being that you're actively engaging with life. You're not waiting for it to happen. You're getting out there and you're doing stuff. And even if you're failing, and even if you're messing up, and even if it's not going right, at least you're in the ring.
Yeah.
So.
How'd you celebrate?
My cousin Jack, he came to visit me in Thailand, and I mean, he was just there to visit. We just partied for about 10 days straight. Went to the full moon party down in Copenhagen, so it's quite an infamous party, and yeah.
Yeah. John, thanks for sharing that. This has been really valuable. I appreciate your time. I have one last question, John, before I ask it. Just tell people where they can find you, what they should check out online.
The best place to go and learn more about me is at TheMcMethod.com. So that's THE McMethod.com, and that's where that's where you can learn all about me. I got the podcast there with Perry Marshall, John Carlton, all those kind of guys, and I mean, you can sign up to the email list. You can see the emails that I send out. You can.
Why would someone not? If you're smart and someone's their autoresponder guy, you better sign up for his list. I mean, it doesn't matter if you like it or if it's in you just need to see what someone else is doing. And besides that, John is a beautiful site. I mean, I actually learned a lot just from looking at your site, the way you do. I mean, the design of it, the look of it, the font of it. I mean, it's really well done.
Thanks, man. Man. And two, if you go to the site and sign up and add yourself to the email list, I'll reply to your email.
Yeah.
So, not always every day, the same day, but I will get back to you in the email. And the first email that you get from me will ask you to send me an email. So
yeah, learn from the autoresponder master. So McMethod, anywhere else that they should check out? TheMcMethod.com. I'll link that up.
Yeah, TheMcMethod.com. I'm sitting on the domain actually. I've got a back order on McMethod.com. I'm trying to pick that up as well. So
my last question, John, and I have so many other questions, which I've already taken more of your time. I wanted to talk about. This is not what I'm asking. I was going to ask about. It's so interesting that your dad was a pastor. I wanted to bring that up. I didn't bring that up at some point, but we'll save it. You'll have to put it in your auto sequence, so they have to sign up for that. Just the hardest part about running your company, some of your best advice. But the question I want to ask is some of your influential mentors and or books that you suggest that people check out. Because I know you are a student of the game, even if you're reaching higher levels.
I would check out one of the first books I think you should check out is 80-20 Sales and Marketing by Perry Marshall. That was one of the best books I read this year. I would check out Atlas Shrugged. It was an amazing book that set off a whole bunch of sort of internal shifts sometime last year when I read it. That's not really marketing focused, just general. I'd say business and mindset. And as for mentors, I mean, for me, I've just often, you know what I love about Americans actually? Because I'm from Sydney, Australia, so I spend time with, I live in Thailand, so I spend time with all kinds of people. And it's interesting seeing, what different cultures are like. And one thing I love about Americans, because we're not all like this in Australia. In Australia, if you become successful or if you get too good at something, there's something we call tall poppy syndrome. You don't want to get too good, too successful, because people start to think that you think you're the shit, basically. They think you think you're so cool, but you're really not. You're all snobby, whatever. Whereas in America, what I love about Americans is Americans have this mindset where it's like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. If that other guy's out there making $1 billion, well, I can make $1 billion. Like, that's the attitude. And if I tell an American that I want to do X, Y, Z, he's like, man, go for it. You can do X, Y, Z. Or at least the Americans I've met. So there's probably a bit of a self-selection bias going on because I meet people out here in Thailand. But my experience with Americans has been very much, that's part of the culture, that land of the free, home of the brave. Mm-hmm. Let's go out, like, you can do it, I can do it, we all can do it. So, to bring that back, what was the question here? This was leading to something.
I actually like your answer. It doesn't matter what the question is at this point.
What was there was a point to that.
It was a mentors. You were talking about mentors.
That's it. Okay, yeah. So what I do is, in this way, so that's where the American thing comes in, is I try and have this attitude that I can do anything anyone else can do, which is where that I think that's why I get on with Americans, because I really appreciate. Yeah, like right now I'm reading a book about billionaires. It's about, it's called All the Money in the World. It's about the Forbes 400. So 400 richest people in the world. And it's fascinating because it's making me think back to, it's making me look at sort of my beliefs around money and wealth and business. And I'm reading these stories about these billionaires thinking, man, they don't really sound that unique. I mean, why can't I just do what they do? If I just did what they did, well, I get the same results.
Yeah.
It's obviously not that simple.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how that mindset shifts. So when it comes to mentors, I think it's, just get out there and find people who are doing stuff way, way, way bigger than you are, and put yourself in their shoes and think, man, I could do the exact same thing.
Yeah. John, you're fantastic. Always love chatting with you. I can go on and on, but it's evening there, and you're going to need to get to bed soon. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeremy. I've had an absolute blast, man.